My dear friends, I'm Dr. Shadman Zaman. I hope all of you are having a great weekend. Winter is here, it seems. Now, well, I've just finished work and come home. Just wanted to speak about a few things. I didn't have anything specific in mind. So it's more a random expression of things, expression of thoughts on social and political issues. I think let's start with Trussonomics. Trussonomics, and well, I would call it the debacle of the Truss administration in the first proper week, because um, she had a big in tray to take in, but you couldn't have had the worst start. Now, I don't want to say Trussonomics has failed and etc., because we haven't had a chance to see it play out, and I don't think it's gonna. I don't think by the end of the election cycle in 2 years' time, we will see any impact of it yet by that time. But I don't know whose idea it was in the administration to give that mini budget without the OBR's report. Usually, all budgets are given with the OBR's report. So that was a huge, lack of insight, I guess, into the administrative processes. And you can't really say they were new or something. They've been in the administration for a long, long time, so they should know better how it works. Now, having said that, Liz Truss, I think if you look at Liz Truss's to this the Sun article, she wants to do things differently. One thing is doing things differently. One thing is totally breaking protocol and totally not willing to follow certain standards. I guess that's the correct word, standards, because what you would for an chest infection, a bacterial chest infection, you would give antibiotic, not chemotherapy drugs, if I can use the medical analogy. Like, so there are certain protocols or standards to follow. I think Liz Truss administration should follow them. Yes, they want to do things differently. Differently doesn't mean totally shattering every standard. Now, having said that, my goodness, what has she done? What has she done? If you remember my video, I said the pound wouldn't be the issue. The pound itself wouldn't be the issue. The bond market would be. It was the bond market was hitting 60%. Sorry, 6%. The bonds and everything, and the share markets obviously nosedived. I know the pound has now recovered, but after a huge intervention, which is another big issue. The Bank of England has intervened with 65 billion pounds. Now, we only had 211 billion pounds up to last week in our foreign exchange reserves. I think now we will only have, what, 146 billion? And don't forget, the government is also spending huge amounts, huge amounts. I think at least 70 billion or something like that for the energy price cap at 2,500 pounds. Now, we will very soon face a Sri Lanka-like situation if we are not careful. I know Liz Truss is 33 points behind, and I'll just touch on it in a while. But we are in big trouble very soon, because there is no way this government is looking at fiscal discipline, I guess. They are borrowing, and they will continue to borrow. Once their borrowing costs go up, the foreign exchange reserves will continue to go down as well, I guess. We run a trade deficit monthly of on average 10 billion. I think it's between 9 and 11 billion. I looked at the last 1 year data. It's always been between 9 and 11 billion. So we are at a precipice here. We should be very careful. I know we are all saying about the pound, about the housing market, and my goodness, so many people are at risk of losing their houses because of this trust policy. It was such a lack of insight. They should have not tried to do so many things so quickly. A tax cut was needed, but too many tax cuts. They wanted to give a CPR, I guess, electric shock to the economy in that sense, in the medical sense. But I think the electric shock may have been just too much of a volt. They needed to control the voltage. Having said that, My goodness, what a difference 1 year makes. Last year, I didn't go to the Manchester Tory conference. My friends went, a lot of my friends went, and it was a Boris conference. Oh my God. Priti Patel, Sunak, Les Truss, nobody was even allowed to give a speech in the main hall. It was Carrie Simons had a bigger audience and hall than the cabinet members, and Boris obviously gave that famous speech. He just had won the Hartlepool election, was flying high. And does anybody remember John Bon Jovi? That John Bon Jovi joke? The, 1 year later, what a contrast it makes. John Bon Jovi was sacked by Boris himself. His last act as prime minister. Don't forget his last act as prime minister. Then he was interim prime minister, but he spent that on holidays. But his last main act as prime minister, John Bon Jovi, and I still remember that speech. Like, and then there was well, there was him saying Thatcher was this, Thatcher was that. My goodness. And I remember talks about him being in power till 2030, 2032. Wow. And do you remember Keir Starmer heckled, booed, and his only line was, "Oh, are we the party? Are we the party of opposition, or are we the party of government, or are we the party of protest?" And that was the only line he was using. That's the only line he was saying. But what a difference 1 year makes. Keir Starmer just gave the speech of his life. Great British Energy Fund. Don't know how it will work, and I don't think it's a means-tested policy, but it's a policy nonetheless. Anything sounds better than Liz Truss right now, but it's a policy nonetheless, I guess. And he gave the speech of his life. Credit where credit is due. Hats off, Keir Starmer. Hats off. You have worked on it. You gave the speech of your lifetime, and like if and when you win the election, which is highly likely you will, uh, I think we can point to that point where he gave that speech, 2022 Liverpool conference speech, where he turned the corner. He turned the corner, and he made the momentum swing. Having said that, I think with the election of Liz Truss, two big advantages that Boris had over Keir Starmer have been lost. I think uh, one is charisma. Boris had so much charisma compared to Keir, but Keir, like Liz Truss doesn't. By the way, the way she even gave a speech in the radio, you could see that she didn't have charisma. How many pauses do you take? Her pauses were like, "Oh, okay," and then she was reciting a line. It felt like she was giving, like, yes, she was on the BBC studio, but every time a question was being asked, she was waiting for an answer from the sides, from her advisors, and then she was reading that answer out, and she was taken to the cleaners by that. Anyways, it's so funny now. What a contrast 1 year makes. Liz Truss, no charisma, and both Liz Truss and Keir Starmer are Remainers, or were Remainers and voted Remain. I think Keir Starmer was funnily pointed that out. Now, if Tories want to say that they are the party of Brexit, and then since Brexit vote, you have selected two prime ministers who are Remainers or who were Remainers. So if you claim that Remainers can be Brexiteers now, then the same can apply to Keir Starmer. So that argument really, you have lost that argument now. You cannot even use it in an election cycle. It would be you'd be laughed off at the door if you are not already. And the idea that you're going to cut now salaries, you're not going to cut pensions, benefits, but you have given the super rich more money. It's just crazy. It's just crazy to think. And I don't know what the number 10's communication team was thinking. I was talking to a few friends on Tuesday and Wednesday, and all of them work for different MPs and everything, and none of them were looking forward to the Tory conference. Like I think if it is possible for Liz Truss, she would probably announce a lockdown just to skip that conference, if it is possible. Like, it's that bad. It's just becoming a joke. Oh God, 33 points. I don't think it's 33. I think realistically it's between 23 and 25. But even then, like, Labour doesn't have to do anything. Labour has already won the next election in the sense. I just hope Tories do well, because if we want a coalition government, Tories need to do well, and I hope they look into it. I hope they remedy their actions, if that's the correct phrase, I guess. Uh, Secondly, what was that with Putin? Holding hands in a playground, all of them, Russia, Russia. The only thing that I think Putin is 66 or 67, whatever, and he's having going through some illnesses. I thought at one point they would start like going around circles, Russia, Russia. Children do that in playground. What was that? What a joke, man. And the funny thing is, okay, they announce like you are not in full control of most of those regions anyway, or all of them, and you announce those four regions. The funniest thing, today, your army loses a key city. What a joke! What a joke! And well, I think we have all seen the protests and everything. The end is nigh for Putin. The end is nigh, and very soon Russians people will kick Putin out. Like he's now so desperate that he's now doing children's parades sort of thing. What is he doing? I don't know what he was thinking. Whether he was thinking of what interpretation of history he was going through, but he interpreted it very wrong, very wrong. And I think it shows why we always need to have we always should be cherishing democracy. Any democracy, the democracy that we have, is Britain, West. It should be cherished, and I think it's sad to see how Putin has just I don't know, catastrophically declined in stature, declined in health, I guess, declined in authority. He has nothing now. He is a joke. He's a running joke. Ukraine is just like Ukraine is just running around Putin now, Putin's army, and Russians will not. Russia is basically, if Russia is not going to lose to Ukraine, China will take over Russia. There are elements of Russia in the south, in the Russian south near the Chinese border, which actually have Chinese majority communities, and China actually has historical claims to those. Historical claims to those areas. They even fought mini border skirmishes during the Cold War times even, and that also was a prelude to the Sino-Soviet split. So believe me, Putin has brought in Russia's demise, and it's sad. It's sad because Russian people have a good history, have a big history, has a very significant history in its own self, especially in parts of Europe or Eurasian history. And it's sad how they have totally squandered everything. Uh, what else? Well, I was looking at BBC today, and there were nurses quitting in record numbers. And it is true. It is true. Nurses are quitting. A lot of my friends are quitting. And why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they? And I think this is something we should all reflect together. First of all, new nurse who joins the workforce. And those stories are also true. Nurses going to the food banks and everything. Very true stories. Now, first of all, I think we need to, instead of blaming Boris, Keir, Starmer, Labour, Blair, or Theresa May, or Cameron, I think we should blame ourselves. And I blame myself. I'm a huge fan of Formula One, love F1. But having said that, the money that, I'll put it this way, the money that Kevin De Bruyne makes, and I love the way he plays and his passes and everything. So it's not that I'm having a go at him, but the money that Kevin De Bruyne makes in a week, will take probably 8 years for a band new nurse, a band 5 nurse, or a band or 6 years for a band 6, 7 nurse, or 5 years for a band 8, 9 nurse to even achieve, or even just imagine that. That's what Kevin De Bruyne makes in a week. Like, I go to Formula One, and I'm equal. Like, I'm not trying to blame you or take a moral high ground. I'm equally to blame. I go to Formula One. If Charles Leclerc or Lewis Hamilton doesn't drive the car, people won't die. But if a nurse doesn't give a vital medication, people will die, and that's a serious issue. But I think our moral priorities, our day-to-day priorities, are somewhere mistaken or somewhere we are flawed. I guess that's something we need to look at as a nation. And I don't blame the nurses for leaving. Their salaries aren't even means tested. Uh, their salaries aren't even like inflation measured, or their salary rises aren't even compatible with inflation. And there isn't much of a opportunity to rise up the ladder. And I don't understand how they are allowed to work 14 hours. It's inhumane. Like, it's crazy to think how they are working 13, 14 hours shifts, 3, 4 in a row, and then they do 2 or 3. They have a day break of 1 or 2 days, and then they have to do nights or come back and do the same rota. This is crazy. That's not on, man. That's not on. Something is wrong, and I don't blame the nurses for leaving. And I hope. Listen, I work with some of the best nurses. Whichever hospital I work, I'm just coming from an A&E shift, and I can tell you that I work with some of the best nurses I know, of all bands, and some of the most dedicated nurses. And I'll tell you this: they deserve better. They deserve better. And I just hope. I just hope, as a society, I think it's not the Labour's promises, or it's not conservative promises. As a society, we should be thinking of where our priorities lie and how our priorities um, can make a difference, or changing our priorities can make a difference. Um, Finally, I think, yeah. I've spoken for 16 minutes, 17 minutes now. Uh, I think finally, one thing I would want to touch is proportional representation. I know we have a first past the post democracy, and I love the British freedom of choice, freedom of speech, and all of that. But something is wrong with this first past the post. We are getting majorities, Tory or Labour. That's all we are stuck with. Labour majority took us to a war which we should have never gone into. Tory majority wasted in partying in number 10. How did we go down that route? I know a lot of people say, oh, proportional representation leads to, what do you call it, coalition governments. But coalition governments aren't bad. Germany has had coalition governments for since the reunification. Um Angela Merkel always had been in a coalition government with the SPD, I think, SPD, Olaf Scholz's party, which was he's the leader now. But Angela Merkel always had that coalition, the Grand Coalition. So coalitions aren't bad. This idea that coalitions are bad. Israel has what, 4 to 5% growth. Israel has never had anything but a coalition. Israeli governments have always been coalitions. They have won wars. They have won. They have not only won, they have thrived. They are the pride of any entrepreneurial country. Sorry about that. So I think I was looking at the data the other day. Since 1918, I think it was, I can't remember when. In 1918, the highest vote, since the tallies were maintained and everything, and records were being kept, I don't remember which party. In 1918, the winning party won 49.7% of the vote, but a lot of seats. That's the highest ever national vote margin that any political party has ever won in a UK general election. Like, even Boris in 2019 won what, 43% of the vote, and even Blair won 46 or 47% of that vote in 97. But he had what, 67% of the seats. Boris had what, 60% of the seats. Something is wrong there. Something is wrong. Data should reflect public opinion, and if it doesn't, then something is wrong. I was listening to Nigel Farage's interview with the Telegraph. I think this was on 3rd or 4th September, 1 or 2 days before the Tory announcement of the new leader. And it was with the Telegraph YouTube. I think you can find it on the Telegraph's YouTube channel. He said something interesting, that the political system or electoral system is so broken that it deters him from coming into election, okay, coming into electoral politics, and that's sad. That's sad because we need to look into that. We need to hopefully sort it out and see how it goes, and yeah, take it from there. I would like your opinion here. I would really love your opinion because I think we need to look at that. He also said something interesting that, and I agree with him there, that Jeremy Corbyn is horrible. But Jeremy Corbyn, it's good to see Corbyn out of, or Corbynism out of, or to the fringe of British politics where it deserves to be. But Keir Starmer is not a Jeremy Corbyn, and that was something he really said that I think resonated at least with me. That Keir Starmer is not a Jeremy Corbyn, and having listened to the speech, it was a good speech. It was a very good speech. Well, I would like your opinion, and please subscribe my YouTube channel and follow my Facebook page and engage in the comment section. I really would love a debate and see how it goes and enjoy exchanging and sharing ideas. Thank you, my friends. Have a good weekend.